Hello, good evening. Very quickly, I've had to time my hair just so that I do this. Is it good evening? No, it's good afternoon. Happy Thankful Thursday. It's an awesome Thursday. It's Tracy, Tracy's with Fashion, Tracy's.com. Right, so hope you like my scarf. It's a bit different. That's alright. So today, let's check me out a bit. So today I'm going to be doing step 4 of 5. Under the Food and Faith chat series, which is implementing healthier eating habits at home. Hi Dukus, thanks for joining. It's a very quick one. Thank you for all the love. Thank you for your continued support. For everyone who's been connecting with me on social media, thank you very much. So without further ado, I should go straight. Oh, it's good morning here. Oh yeah, okay, great. Hi Dukus, good morning. That's my lovely cousin on joining in. Right, okay, so very quickly, this is step 4, implementing healthy eating habits at home, and today we're going to be doing use of fresh herbs in your cooking. Right, okay, so before I go on, as we know, it's Food and Faith chat. Everything that I've been doing around Food and Faith it's just as it sounds. It's food, it's faith, and how our faith impacts, how our faith how our faith has an impact on how we eat, how our faith goes with our food. So I'm going to very quickly pick up a scripture in Genesis chapter 9 and verse 3. Very quickly. It says, "Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you." But I'm picking on the part B that says, "And the green herb have I given you all things." So I'm very particular about using fresh herbs in cooking. Why? For various reasons. Because it adds flavor to your food. It's the natural way of getting your food to be more flavorful. This is something I've always used. Well, not always, but ever since I discovered, has been a great addition to my cooking, whether it's for my family or whether it's for clients and whether it's for guests, you just name it. So today what I've done is I've pulled out some of my best herbs that I love to use in my cooking, and I want to share the different things that you can use those herbs for, because I think it's a challenge for both mums and dads when you're cooking, knowing what kind of herbs should I be using, apart from curry powder, apart from all-purpose seasoning, as they call it. I hate that name, but all-purpose is what they call it. Apart from those, what else can I use to make my food flavorful? Because a lot of the comments I get from mums and from dads, and from even, they don't have to be mums or dads, from men and women, from people, is, "Oh, I'm cooking the same thing all the time. It's always tasting different." Thank you for joining, whoever you are. Thank you for all the love. It's always the same flavors. The food doesn't taste any different. So how you've made that stew has always tasted the same way. How you've made that curry has always tasted the same way. How you've made that chicken has always been the same way. That beef has always been the same way. Hi Connie, thanks for sharing. Has always been the same way. So what should you be doing differently to make your food taste different? Now, so this wasn't last year. I think the year before last, in 2015, I was inspired to write 23 Herbs, Spices and Seasoning ebook, which has been selling, thank God for that. And it's an ebook that lists 23 of my herbs, 23 of my best, if that's the word, herbs, spices and seasoning that are great for your cooking. They're all round. You can use them for everything. Without further ado, I'm going to start, because I'm kind of rushing off trying to get dinner ready and get in time for the kids as well. So yeah, so just pardon me if I'm rushing, but if you've got any question, always send me an email, traces@mail.com, tracyce@mail.com. I can reach me on my website as well, traces.com. Right, so I'm starting very quickly with ginger. Ginger's not a herb, but it's some sort of a flavoring or some sort of spice. Hello Ashon, thanks for joining. It's some sort of a spice. It's not a herb, but it's a spice. But this I call a foundational flavoring to cooking. So if you're gonna make anything, doesn't matter what you're making, doesn't matter what you're cooking, whether it's chicken, whether it's beef, whether it's fish, whether it's lamb, whether it's pork, salmon, whatever it is, these are your foundational flavors. And I made that quite clear in the 23 Herbs, Spices and Seasoning ebook. Ginger and garlic. So when you watch all the Michelin star chefs or any chef cooking, most times when they start with garlic and ginger. They start with those two. Why? Because they're your foundational flavors. They make all the difference in your cooking. They form the base of your cooking. So every time you're going to cook that, you're a ginger fan. Yes, fantastic. Thanks, Aloysia. I am. These things have a lot of health benefits, and I can't even begin to start mentioning every single one of those health benefits. But you can always Google, you can always check benefits of ginger, health benefits of ginger, health benefits of garlic. Garlic, yes, has a bit of a smell. Not everybody likes the smell of garlic, but it's so good for your digestive system, blood circulation. There's so much that you can get just by watching. Hi, Emilola, thanks for joining. There's so much you can get just by adding ginger and garlic into your food. Even if you're not going to try any other herb, always start with garlic and ginger in anything that you're making. If you're sauteing, yeah, in your stew, you can just blend a bit of it with your tomatoes, with your pepper, with your scotch bonnet, with your red bell peppers, and straight away you get a different flavor. I love the smell of garlic and ginger. The next best things that I like to use that are common, yes, Oluwaseun, I totally agree. You put it in your smoothies, your sauces all the time. Soup, that's me. The smoothies, they've got to be there. In my soups, they've got to be there. In my stews, when I'm even seasoning my chicken, seasoning my beef, seasoning my lamb, I always use garlic and ginger. I don't miss those two. They make so much of a difference in your cooking. The next things that I like to use a lot, this. Now, I bought this because I thought I'd get a fresh packet rather than using one of the ones in my fridge. Is your fresh thyme. I absolutely love fresh thyme. Bearing in mind we're talking about implementing healthy eating habits at home. By the time you get into the habit of using fresh herbs in your cooking, you find that you no longer desire the artificial herbs, the artificial flavoring. I'm not saying they're terrible. I'm not saying they're overly bad. But sometimes they have chemicals they put in it, MSG and all of that. People are getting more health conscious now. People are more conscious of what they eat. And you should be. We should all be conscious of what we eat. So how can we do that? It's by trying different steps, trying something new and something different. So this is fresh thyme. You can get this anywhere, from any store, any part of the world you live in, you can get fresh thyme. I'm yet to try fresh thyme. If you honestly shall try fresh thymes, they are the aroma alone from a fresh herb makes all the difference. Your kitchen will just be, I don't know, it's just going to smell divine. So I like to put fresh thyme in everything that I cook as well. And most times I would use it in my sauces, so like in the stews. If you don't like to see the leaves, because when I'm cooking for the kids, sometimes they don't like to see the leaves of it. So just blend it in your tomatoes. Blend it, before you actually go ahead to cook. So just blend them in. The reason I love fresh herbs is the fact that you can blend them into your cooking. So people don't have to see the herbs. If you don't like the herbs, you don't have to see it. So fresh thyme is another very good flavor. This is great for beef. When you're seasoning beef and you're seasoning chicken, put a fresh thyme. You just need to take just one of it is all you need. Sometimes just one, and the flavors are they ooze straight into the beef or into that chicken. Or if you wanna, you can always take, I always say to people, don't get rid of this the stem. Don't take just the leaves out and throw the stem away. No, you want everything. You want to use every part of this. You don't want to leave any bit out. Another bit I like to use that is common for me as well is parsley. Now this is a dried herb, because when I run out of the fresh herbs, I also can use dried herbs. It doesn't mean that you can't use thank you Oluwaseun, thank you so much, keep up the great work. Thank you, bless you, love you too. So fresh parsley, you can use parsley. This isn't fresh, you can always use dried herbs. If you're still struggling with the use of fresh herbs in your cooking, what you can always do is get the dried ones and put them in a plastic bag. So when I go into the store and I get like the massive ones, once you've opened them, sometimes they get very messy in your cupboard and they just spill all over the place. Get like a freezer bag, one of these, the food and freezer bags, and just put them right inside, and you could do exactly the same thing for all your fresh herbs. All you need to do is put them inside. I'll talk about storage very quickly. I'm doing this really quick, but by all means ask me any question as I go along. So you can do this, and there'll be a podcast as well. I'm going to hopefully put this on my YouTube channel, Tracy's Food Fashion, so you can always catch it up again at some point later on. So parsley I love for fish and for chicken. So any chicken dish, use parsley. Any chicken dish. If you don't even have fresh thyme, parsley. Thyme is great more for your beefy for your earthy, your beefy kind of meals and your sauces. But when you want to do like lighter style white meat, so when it's white meat, so fit a chicken for instance is a white meat, use parsley. Parsley is great for chicken. Another fantastic addition which you can't do without when you cook is coriander. I absolutely love coriander. Why? Because it's got this scent, it's got this soothing scent to food, and the smell, and it's very subtle. So it's very subtle, but what's the word, elegant. I call it elegant, I call it exotic. That's why it's food fashion. It's got an exotic flavor to it. And I love coriander when you're making anything like a soup. So if you're making butternut squash soup, tomato soup, or you're making pepper soup, you can add a little bit of coriander into your pepper soup to get a slightly different taste to it. Even to chicken, if you add coriander and parsley to your chicken, just coriander and parsley with your curry powder and sea salt, listen, the flavors are going to be different. I can almost, in fact, I can guarantee that. So they also give a great foundational flavors to white meat. So it's great for white meat dishes, and that's the beauty about it. And people use it in curries. Like it says here, it's good for curries and it's good for salads. I tend to just slice a little bit of it and put it over my salad, fresh, raw. So you're eating it fresh, you're eating it healthy, you're eating it raw. Anything that's green, I love green herbs because green herbs have got natural flavors in them. Have got natural health benefits. These are flavors that have, hi Aki, thanks for joining. These are flavors that these are God-given herbs, and the whole purpose is using the natural herbs from the ground to add to your cooking. These are natural. There's no additives. There's nothing in there. There's no chemicals to kind of preserve them and keep them flavorful. These are natural stuff, and this is what you're putting in your cooking to give it different flavor. Every time people have used fresh herbs in their cooking, I guarantee they always get different flavors. Why? Because it's natural, because it's exotic. I love this. I love using exotic herbs to make exotic flavorful. So even the simplest of dishes becomes so flavorful when you use fresh herbs in your cooking. An addition to the family, which is also great, is basil. I love basil in meat dishes. Absolutely love basil. So lamb, for instance. So for your lamb, for your pork, yes, basil and sage. Fantastic. So when you have basil and sage, have I got a sage here? I'm trying to see if I've got any leftover sage. Yeah. No, I've got that's mint. I was going to try and get you a basil so you can. What did I just say now? Basil. I forgot. But anyway, basil is a great addition to meat dishes. And sage, that's what I was going to say. So pork. So if you're going to cook pork, for people who like to eat pork, use sage. Sage and pork, they're married. They're like, you know, married. There's some flavors that just are married together. Certain foods and certain herbs just blend so that when you use them, they just make so much of a difference in your cooking. So sage, pork. When you talk about basil, you talk about meat dishes. You talk about tomatoes, basil and tomatoes. So anything, like even in curries as well, you can put a bit of basil. You don't need a lot, you just need a little bit. When you open, and these are in the stores, you can get them anywhere. This is efirin for people in Nigeria as an example. This is called efirin in Nigeria. I think that's what it's called, efirin. So efirin is, you just about use it. Some people use it in their soups, but I like to use it in my meat dishes. So you can use basil in your meat dishes to get those flavors out. Now if you're making stock, say chicken stock, beef stock, seafood stock, bay leaves. Absolutely love. I call bay leaf the stock goddess. I absolutely love bay leaf because it just does something different to your stock. So every time you want to make up a chicken stock, put a bit of bay leaf inside. So when you're cooking your chicken and you want to be able to keep the stock, you know, did you call it the jus from the chicken, or making the stock that comes with it, just put some bay leaf in it. Bay leaf, 1 or 2. You don't need a lot. and what that does, it just gives a nice, it just subtly blends into your stock, subtly blends in, and you just get, it's amazing the kind of flavors that you get. Now for our seafood lovers, fennel, I'm going too fast, so pardon me for this. Fennel seeds. Now you can't do without fennel seeds if you love fish. So whether it's mackerel, whether it's salmon, hi Tunde, thanks for joining in, sir. Whether it's salmon, whether it's whitefish fillet, whether it's mackerel, whether it's red bream, fennel seeds. Fennel seeds are a great addition to any fish dish. So even if you're making a fish pepper soup, you can put a bit of fennel seeds in your fish pepper soup. And if fenugreek seeds, they're like minty. They're a little bit minty, so they give it that hint of, it's not heat, but some hint of hotness somewhere. You know, when something is minty, you get a little bit of a kick somewhere. So that's what fennel seeds do. Fennel seeds are a great addition to any, my hands are washed by the way, for any fennel seed, any sort of fish dish. So it's about playing around with the flavors. But if you need more help in terms of using those fresh herbs, get in contact with me, traces@mail.com. I have the 23 herbs, spices and seasoning ebook, where I have explained 23 that you can use in your cooking, your everyday cooking, and they would just wow you when you discover the flavors that are in our food. Sometimes using the artificial flavors really masks the genuine flavor of food. But when you start to use the fresh herbs and also things like lemon, what that does is it just pulls out all the natural flavors from the food, so that when you eat that particular chicken or you eat the beef, you find there's a difference to the flavoring, because you've gone fresh, you've used the fresh stuff, and you've pulled out the natural flavors from those. But I understand there can be concerns for some mums and dads or some people as to the storage of it. But I will tell you what I do. Also, again, in the 23 herbs, spices and seasoning ebook, I explained how you can store those. I have these containers. So I have these containers, and they've got covers on them. So these are one way you can store herbs. So if you don't tend to buy them as bottle herbs like these, and you've bought them fresh because you just want to try the fresh herbs, all you need to do is chop them and put them in these. I'll be doing mine shortly, but it's just I'll go be out in a minute. So I'll chop them and I'll put them in these containers, higher star, and I will just close it. Yeah, so you can do that if you want for your fresh herbs, and just put them in the fridge. They will keep as long as it's airtight. If it's not airtight, that's where you find people buy fresh herbs and then they say, oh, it's gone off, and they throw it away. Now it's because there's an issue with the storage. It's how you've stored it. But if you've stored it in containers, hi Abiodun, thanks for joining in. If you stored it in containers, clean, dry containers like this, close it and put it in the fridge, you should be fine. Hi Buki, thanks for joining. But if you don't have these sort of containers, you can always buy them in the store. Anywhere you can buy them, anywhere, where no matter what part of the world you live, you can buy them. So if you can't buy the small containers that you can store your herbs in, you can use the bags, just like I've done with the parsley. So you use the bags and then you just label them. So whether it's dried herbs, whether it's fresh herbs, you can do the same thing. So you put it in, you seal it in, and put it in your freezer. Yeah? Most time I put mine in my freezer. The reason why I do that is because it keeps the freshness of the herb. So every time you open that fresh herb, you'll always smell. Hi Buki. You can always perceive or smell the fragrance that comes from the fresh herb. That's what you want. You want to keep your fresh herbs fresh. You want to keep them fresh because you always want to keep getting the best out of them in terms of flavoring. Now, when you're talking about earthy, I forgot to mention, because there's a few here that are still here that I haven't actually mentioned. Turmeric. If you want to add a bit of, this is my earthy spice. This is the next thing to curry powder. Although not applied in the same way, you don't cook it in the same way as you cook curry powder, as you use curry powder. Curry powder you put straight in, but turmeric you only need a small quantity, and it just changes the color because of the orangey color. If you're making, say for instance, fried rice as an example, or you're trying to make vegetable rice, you put a bit of curry powder and it changes the color of the rice. So especially for children, hi Abraham, thanks for joining. So especially for our young children who like to see color in their food these days, they like to see their food different. Even for you as an adult, you like color in your food. Add a little bit of turmeric in your rice, and the rice absorbs the color. So as it absorbs the color, you find that rice has a different color. That's why sometimes you see your fried rice a different color. It's because of the addition of the turmeric. So in terms of chicken as well, if you're for the chicken lovers again, we've got tarragon. Tarragon is another spice. So if you haven't got parsley, you can always put tarragon. Yeah, I see you, Biggie. Right. So hi Sarah, thanks for joining. So if you haven't got parsley, use tarragon. Tarragon is the next best thing for chicken and fish dishes. So there are some herbs, the way it's amazing, God is so awesome. So when you're lacking one particular herb, he will always put a substitution in another herb. So parsley and tarragon are kind of brother and sister kind of thing. They're not married, they're brother and sister. Yes, I find that if you line your container with a bit of kitchen paper, it makes the fresh herb last even longer. Fantastic. So more tips from Emmy Lola. She said, I find that if you line your container with a bit of kitchen paper, it makes a fresh herb last even longer. Very, very true. So for some people who have a problem with electricity and being able to store in the fridge and that, you could also try that. Put it in a piece of paper, wrap it up as well, just like Emmy Lola has said, and you should get them fresher for even longer. So back to the chicken story. So it's tarragon, it's parsley, it's oregano. When you're talking beef, you're talking thyme, you're talking curry powder, you're talking coriander, and you're talking basil. When you're talking curries, you're talking basil, you're talking coriander, you're talking oregano. So there's so much herbs that I can't even begin to compress all of it in one small chat. But please feel free to get in touch. Tracy's@mail.com. Like I said, if you want to get a copy of the 23 herbs, spices and seasoning ebook, it's an ebook, so it's electronic. So once you've bought a copy, there's a link on my website. Once you bought a copy, it goes straight into your email, and you would see that I've talked about 23. It's amazing that there's 23 of it. There's even much more than that I haven't even mentioned, but the 23 that I've picked on are the ones that are common and the ones that most people would resonate with, and the ones that most people will be able to use in their cooking to make a difference in it. I'm going to be making some casserole shortly, and with the casserole I'm going to be using fresh thyme, I'm going to be using fresh rosemary, and I'm going to be using basil and coriander. It's amazing the flavors that will come out because it's beef. That's why I'm using fresh thyme. Because it's beef, I'm putting in some basil, so that's going to pull out the flavors. So I hope to be able to share my final product sometime today or even tomorrow if I'm not able to make it today. But keep influencing your family positively with good food. Keep influencing your community with good food. Keep making a difference. Keep impacting positively. Food is, hi Sarah, food is an important part of our everyday living. The world is going healthy. Everybody's trying to implement healthier eating lifestyles, and I totally understand that we all run busy lives, and sometimes it's quite difficult to be able to keep a balance. But every time you do it, start with small steps. I always say start with small steps. If you've never used any fresh herb ever in your cooking before, start with parsley and oregano. If you've never used ginger and garlic before, start with those in your cooking. A little step at a time, and when you feel more confident, you can then graduate to the more deeper flavors like coriander and basil, and then go into things like fenugreek, go into things like cumin, which I actually forgot to mention is also great for beef. There's just so much fresh herbs there. So we need to start experimenting with the fresh herbs that we have, using our fresh herbs more in our cooking, reduce this chances of adding too much salt in your food, which is not good for people who have high blood pressure, and at the same time it reduces the chances of using artificial flavoring in our food because you have used the natural flavors. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for staying connected. Remember, you're awesome, you're beautiful, and I will see you on step 5, which hopefully maybe next week we might be doing an actual cooking. Thank you very much for staying connected. God bless. Bye.